and we can kick things off. We're very lucky, folks, to have Dani with us today. And let me get my act together here. Dani was born in, I don't know, do you want me to go all the way back to your birth? Okay, all right. Well, let's start. We do in reverse order. Dani's responsible for the front end and for the P band and KU band receivers. So we're talking microwave, folks. Is that one of your projects? Oh, cool. Outstanding. I love a lab. Oh, that's great. That is so cool. I love seeing inside a lab. And let's see. You've been working at the VLA since 2022. Let's see. You've got your licensed ham since mid 2008. You spent some time in, wow, that's so cool, in Japan. That is outstanding. And you attended UMD to secure RF engineering specialty degree, and you worked at contracted to the NSA. I used to work at DISA around the corner from you. Let's see, what else do you want me to highlight here? You've got quite a career.
Well, that's what happens when you bounce around thanks to the military contracting.
I hear you. I did a little bit of that myself. So why don't you go on and take it away? I will make sure that you can share if you need to. There you go. So welcome, Dani Werts.
Well, I didn't really have any slides prepared. They were originally supposed to be at my house, but I kind of had to rush into work because I never got the emails before I left. Yeah,
oh, wow.
No darn fault.
I love the background. It's like Tony Stark's background. It's like really cool.
Just want to run like Jarvis, start up the system. Let's go from there. So I don't really know where I want to start with today because, well, I did get my ham radio license in 2008, and it was kind of a function of wanting to do Skywarn and storm chasing. And I also kind of wound up helping out my actual career field because doing signals analysis, we were primarily dealing with a lot of HF related signals and whatnot. So any kind of additional information that you could learn, especially about radio propagation, is always beneficial. So I definitely was kind of sucked in that way, I guess you could say. Let's see, help me on here. Let's see, so I know that they're doing primarily safety at the moment. Has everyone been doing all right with that one? Everyone enjoying themselves so far?
We're starting in safety this week. So they'll be reading those of let's put it this way. Most of us will be reading this week. I suspect some people reading about the safety chapter 9 this week, but I suspect there's some people who jumped ahead, but who knows, you know. But yeah, we'll be covering that.
Oh, there's a whole lot contained within the whole safety subject. I mean, you have the RFI mitigations, interference with other people and whatnot. But then there's a whole lot of other practical applications, such as the electrical shock hazards and whatnot, which
that's covered. That's covered in the chapter.
So I think we mentioned a little bit about Skywarn today.
Well, yeah, I think that would be good to talk about Skywarn. I don't know. We've covered Skywarn in, I think it was lesson 2 or lesson 3. So it might be good to refresh people on what Skywarn is and how it works.
All right, let me just see if I can't bring up something real quick. So Quick. All right, so I don't know if most people know about the history of Skywarn, but it was started back in 1965 to provide ground truth on a lot of the severe weather events that we wind up seeing. I know out in the Charlottesville, Washington, D.C. metro area, there was getting for a number of storms the other day, like the tornado that was in Delaware. I just found
Yep.
out today it was actually rated in the EF3, and that was thanks to a combination of radar reports, a couple spotters in the area. Let's see. Yeah, one of my friends, Jessica, was involved in that one. And the damage survey just wrapped today.
Oh, wow.
And so far, there's about 92 confirmed tornadoes from that most recent storm that went through.
Really?
And the number's
Wow.
only increasing. I know a big one was the one that came down just to the other side of Little Rock and tracked all the way across the state. Although
Wow.
it looks like it bounced a couple of times. So we'll see how they decide to rate that as to whether or not it's one or multiple different ones. And a lot of that actually came from Skywarn spotters. People
Okay.
out there assigned a specific area, they look and they observe, let's say, the hazard itself, such as the tornado, and then they call it back, and that helps the National Weather Service to issue more accurate forecasts, if you will, especially as it relates like thunderstorms rolling through, tornadoes and whatnot. And I know that tomorrow they'll be activated again because a moderate risk situation is coming up. I'll actually bring that up real quick here.
If you want to share, you should be able to share.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I actually have the proper screen brought up. Ooh.
Yeah, interestingly enough, in our area, the area that I'm in Maryland, we did not get a notice to activate for some reason. We had severe wind here, though.
All right, so this is a setup for tomorrow, and as you can see, you got a moderate risk of tornadoes and lots going on over here. So we might get a replay of what happened on the 31st with a significant long tracking tornadoes, and
Wow.
it's enough for them to actually be kind of concerned about it. And you know, this is going to continue on until Wednesday as well, as it starts tracking over into the Virginia, DC area, and I'm not really sure where everyone else is from. But even me out here in New Mexico, I keep an eye on it because we get lots of fire warnings as well. If we look at the couple-day forecast, so just going to do this real quick.
Oof. Wow.
Even out here in Socorro, for example, we're talking about gusts up to 45 miles an hour, and even tonight, 35. And there's a chance of winds up to 50 miles an hour with blowing snow, and that's going to cause all kinds of hazards.
Yeah,
Which is kind of, it kind of shows that Skywarn is more than just thunderstorms or tornadoes. It can also be fire. It can be heavy winds, flooding. Basically, the goal is to save lives.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know if anyone here has heard NOAA weather radio, but if you hear a report on NOAA weather radio, I'm going to see if I can bring that up. You may hear at the end that it says spotters have seen something or noticed or observed something, and so that's who Skywarn is. We're trained spotters and trained in how and to see these things. Yes.
Jesse, out of curiosity, where are most of the people from?
Okay, well, let's see. We've got some folks in Atlanta. about 3 folks in Atlanta. We've got 1 person who's probably a neighbor, not too far from you. I'm just trying to see if they're on. All right, he was not able to make it, but we've got someone in Pittsburgh, we've got someone in Texas, and I think that pretty much covers it. I'm over here in the Washington, D.C. Metro area, as we like to say.
Oh, yeah, the good old Sterling. Oh, somebody's in Virginia. Aaron McDonald. Nice area in Virginia. Oh, there we go.
Oh, Aaron's in Virginia. Oh, how could I forget? There's some people near that are not far from UVA and not far from, thanks, Aaron, not far from HQ, NRAO HQ over there in Charlottesville. So this is my local Skywarn. These are the folks that call us up and that kind of thing. And I was really surprised. Like I said, over the weekend we had severe wind, and I didn't get the normal call out. So I don't know what's going on.
I know that
Yeah.
it's activity seems to be entirely dependent upon the individual persons. But if anyone's interested in taking a Skywarn class, you can always go to your local National Weather Service state page, and you'll wind up seeing the Skywarn schedule. So I'm just going to use Albuquerque, New Mexico as an example here. So we're up here in the news headlines area. They'll usually mention something about Skywarn. And so you can find classes. And
Oh, cool.
for a lot of these ones, if they're doing virtual, you can click here and it'll give you this information. You just fill it out and you'll be good to go. And let me just walk through this. And
Oh, I love down at the bottom. It says, do you have a ham license?
that's right. Right over here. So I put in mine. Bravo 3 Sierra Echo India. And so on and so forth. But there's also an online course that you can take over here.
Oh,
Just a second, I'm going to pull up my password on this one. Yeah.
oh, watch out. You're typing it in the wrong box.
I'll just make sure to reset it again.
Oh, yeah. I just think it's funny. I do that a lot. Actually, I was chatting with a friend in Slack and I typed my password in Slack. It was like, you didn't see that. That didn't happen.
So over here in this main site, Comment MedEd, you can go ahead and take these courses, and
nice.
you can consider them something of a supplementary to the existing courses. Gives you a little bit more background, and as you can see, 571 courses. There's lots of different classes that you can take around here, and they all do have benefits. So we're over here. I've just taken this one as a
Okay.
ones I haven't even started on these ones. Lots of cues. And they do have a lot of different courses that you can take that can really expand your knowledge base if you're so interested. So I'll go ahead and post this link in the chat screen for everyone.
Excellent. That's great. Thanks. That's great. Yeah, they around here, it's funny. So they said I took that class online, but what happened around here was they said the local chapter over in Virginia wanted us to how did they put it? They wanted us to be aware of the local potential problems. So they wanted us to take their course. So I actually had to, I took it online, and then I think they're back to in-person classes now, which is pretty handy.
Yeah, back
Yeah.
when I originally did all mine, it was just purely in person. They didn't really have any of this
Yeah.
high technology online course stuff. Gotta get with the freaking times, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you got to keep up with the times and that kind of thing. So this is pretty cool. You don't have to be a ham, right?
No, they'll usually
Yeah.
give you contact information, phone numbers, and email addresses, and they'll go over how you're precisely supposed to word things, the relevant information, and when it should be called in, obviously.
Hmm.
So, for example, let's say I'm just bebopping down the street here in Socorro, dodging around all the suspicious homeless people. And all of a sudden, some baseball-sized hail starts falling from the sky. Weirdest thing possible. Could happen.
Hmm.
You would call that in with, your name, location, the time of the event description, and the relevant information about that event, and that's it. So it's all nice and rather straightforward. I will say that much.
So, all right, that's cool. So they have, so in your area, they do fires. They cover fires as hazards.
Fires, monsoons, flash floods, extreme heat.
Okay.
There is the thunderstorms and other severe weather as well. But
Okay.
it does take a bit of a backseat to the other standard hazards around here.
Okay. Which is like hurricanes, not hurricanes, but
Well,
tornadoes.
tornadoes can be a thing, yeah. If you
Okay.
look on tornado archives, they actually have a full listing of previous tornado outbreaks. And around Socorro, you can see the occasional tornado as well. Although growing up in Ohio, lots of severe weather out that way. But
Huh, I'll check that out. Tornado archive,
yeah,
tornado history and weather.gov. Huh.
here we are. And this is the link to that. But it's no small exaggeration to say that people's lives have been saved from timely actions of volunteers. The people who take a few minutes to their time to send in helpful information. You never know. Sometimes what you do can impact lives well beyond your own.
Yeah, I see this as, to me, this is just another example of mutual aid. Um, my class, my class was, the first class I took was in person. It was pre-pandemic. And it was, believe it or not, it was at the Washington Post, one of the Washington Post places. I had to drive into DC. And there were people in my class. I would say the youngest person in my class was probably 14. And the oldest person in my class was probably 80. And a lot of the people were hams, and some of them were just regular folks, and that kind of thing. I thought it was regular folks. It's just,
People with non-specialized knowledge.
exactly right. So the cool thing is they give you an 800 number. They gave us an 800 number to call if there was, and then you can use your call sign or designator. So in my case, my call sign is Papa Golf 116. And I think yours, you have one that's AN something.
Alpha November 16.
Alpha November 16. Okay, so that gives them an idea of the location. And so, they use, as I recall, it's funny how some of it's coming back, but use currency, use currency to describe the size of hail, right? They also want to know the size of trees that have fallen because that tells them the wind speed. In this area, we have snow, so they actually gave us special training for basically telling how deep the snow is. And you make a snowboard. You actually make this thing out of plywood and you paint it, and then you put rulers on it, and you can measure the snow here. And floods in this area is different. That's what makes it different than where you are. Floods are a big thing here. Lots of floods. We're in Maryland is like another water state, I guess like Louisiana in that way. And so we get floods, storm surges, hurricanes, and all the floods. Everything it turns. A lot of stuff ends up as floods, you you know, uh, and that kind of thing. But you have wildfires out there, right?
Yes, and we actually did have a wildfire yesterday just across the river. They're not really sure what started it, but it was a 60-acre wildfire.
Wow.
And they actually had to evacuate the area a little bit.
Wow.
This is going to be a little bit shaky, and this is actually something I was planning on showing on my original slides, but it is
Oh,
what it
please.
is.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see the smoke all the way in the background, and there's a fire truck or some kind of truck there in the foreground. Wow. And that
Yeah,
was
like I said,
yesterday?
that was just yesterday. Yeah.
Wow.
They're not really sure what started the fire, but it very quickly sprung out of control. And so they eventually had to bring in bobcats and whatnot to create a fire break in order to control the spread of the fire. Since they can't just straight up dump water onto it all the time, they have to allow the fire to naturally burn itself out as much as possible.
Wow.
So that they can at least contain and mitigate further spread. And it's just part and parcel living out in the desert, I guess you could say.
Huh.
But, like I said, I do apologize. I had to rush in from home in order to.
Well, we're glad to have you. I appreciate you. We appreciate you being here and rushing in like that. I really like the background. I may end up stealing your background. I don't have anything cool like that. That's your real lab. Yeah.
Yep, this is the lab in which I work every day.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that KU band is about the only major project I have going on at the moment, other than the MSIP, which is the demonstration antenna for the NGVLA.
You might want to tell them what the NGVLA is.
You know what? That is an absolutely fantastic point. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with the very large array itself, which is the big Y of antennas, 27 of them. But over time, they're starting to age out, and we're starting to look at the next steps that we can take. And so part of that is what's called the next generation very large array, which is an array of 237 antennas spread across the state of New Mexico to form one giant radio antenna. And as part of that, we are building out a demonstration antenna called the MSIP. And I wish I could take this over there, but it's over on the other side, and we're currently working on the front end enclosure, which will have a couple of receivers, much like the ones I'm working on. And those will be used to do a technology demonstration on the antenna itself.
Oh, wow.
And we're currently working on that one, and with an expected completion time of sometime early 2024 for the demonstration, and 2035 for the NGVLA, I believe it is.
Okay. I just dropped the link for the NGVLA in the chat. So the part that you're working on, right, that you showed us, that goes in, what part of the antenna does that go in? Because we've seen the huge reflectors on these things. So where does that go?
Right, so that goes into the very top of the antenna itself. I want to see if I can't bring up anything useful to kind of give a demonstration here.
Cool.
I don't have anything immediately loaded. So this goes up. Let's do a straight up image check. So the one that I'm working on is called the KU band antenna, and that is located within the actual receiver of the antenna itself, which looks something like this. So you can see right here, you have different feed horns coming into it.
Mhm.
Those are feed horns that take the bounced RF signal. So it'll come into here, get reflected up into here, and then get pushed down into here. So you have like the L band, S band, C band, KU band, and whatnot. Those are all located directly underneath the dishes, right there,
Cool.
which is this guy right in here. 3D cats, wonderful things.
Oh, nice.
They're located in what's called the vertex room, which is located just beneath it. And so the front end team will come up this way and then actually access the receivers themselves
Oh, wow.
for various servicing tasks and whatnot. And on top of that, there's also the section I have a specialty in, which is called the P band or low band antennas, which look a lot like this. And let me see if I can't do a slightly more folded out one. Now these are all below 1 gigahertz and signal reception.
Okay, so the
very much in the
wires
VHF.
there.
They're dipoles. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So you got those going on. And that can all be accessed through the one place on this antenna that I cannot actually go into, which is right into here, the what they call the barrel. That's where the actual P-band receivers are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can pull up one of the older ones. This isn't the one that's currently out on it, but
Whoa, nice.
what do you look like?
Huh. Okay, and that's inside that cylindrical area.
That's correct.
Neat.
Things a bit heavy. So all that gets set down, and the fine people over at the control center, they take care of all the communications information for it. And yeah.
That's cool. That's really neat. So you design those things, or well, I should ask the open question. What do you do?
For the most part, since we're not rolling out anything new in the P-band, it's mostly just maintaining and doing slight upgrades here and there to increase sensitivity. Every now and then, one of the scientists will get this crazy idea and we'll get roped into participating in his research. Like we had this guy out here on Friday, actually. He's trying to study what's called the dark ages of the universe,
Mhm.
which is that period of time between the cosmic background, the cosmic microwave background, which everyone knows about, and then the first stars and galaxies. And he has a theory that it's all heavily redshifted. So instead of it being visible at say 1.2 gigahertz, it would be visible at 78 megahertz. So we're working with him on various experiments regarding that.
Okay.
And so even though it doesn't seem like a lot of people would really care about it, it's a very dynamic area, and there's a lot to see and a lot of interference too.
Oh, really? From human beings?
Oh yeah.
Huh.
Let me see if I can bring up the most research.
So
Oh,
it's funny because I've never heard of the P band. I've heard of, KU and K band and that kind of stuff. What frequency is that?
that is from 74 megahertz up to, I think we currently only look up to about 600 megahertz with our center on 330.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere right about in there. And if I can find my darn V-Light screen. Forget it. It's not that big of a deal. One of my daily tasks is actually come in and check what's called V-Light. See if we need to compensate for any kind of solar weather.
Oh,
And as a result of checking that, we also wind up seeing what kind of interference is actually normally out there. And I can bring that up onto my fringes screen right here. So a good example would be coming into there. Sure. Coming in and having a fuss over this and see what kind of interference sources there are and whether or not we have to do any kind of mitigation, which this isn't quite like the Green Bay telescope where it sits in the middle of a giant silent zone. So there's a lot of cars passing by, lots of RF noises and whatnot. So we come in here and check in all these guys, and right now the fringes aren't really showing very much because there's not any kind of research that's currently using the P-band south.
so what are we looking at here? The grids.
That showed excessive RF noise, for example.
Okay.
So let's say a car's driving by and some guy's talking on a cell phone, or even if a car's just driving by and they have a slightly questionable spark plug system, it'll start showing up there. Or we'll have our RVs that go by, for example, and maybe they'll want to stop and bust out their microwaves and start using them. That'll show up too.
Hmm.
It's a real messy environment sometimes.
Hmm. Wow. Adjust this here. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm a visual person. I can't speak for the students, but when I saw that grid, so what normally shows up in there is do you see lines that show the intensity of the signals, the interferers?
It'll usually show up as different squares throughout it. And those you'll show either a red dot spread out, which shows a very large amplitude. Normal amplitudes that you expect to see. Lots of interference will be in black and yellow and all the other fun stuff. So when we was looking at it, since mine wasn't being shown, it didn't really show anything of interest. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. I got you.
The hell was I doing? Anyways, those were all the major points I wanted to cover today.
Okay. All right. All right. Fair enough. Well, let's see. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? You want to come off mute, turn on your video, or chat your questions to Dani?
So you talked a bit about a few classes that were offered through like various weather bits. I was wondering just like how long those took. So I don't think you really mentioned that.
Oh, that's actually a good question. The individual classes can vary based upon the subject matter material. The Skywarn program offers several different levels of proficiency, from your standard Skywarn spotter course, which is about 2 hours, to your advanced convective basics, which is about 3 hours. And then there's an additional one, mesoscale product features, I believe it was called, something like that, which is about 5 hours. So it all depends upon the course itself, but your generic introduction is about 2 hours.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, we have a, yep, that's how it is for us too. It's like we get the basic menu, which is the basic training, and then they add on flood training, which is a separate one. There's a snow training, which is separate. And yeah, so it's different. I guess it's the basic is the same everywhere. Well, that's not true, because our basic probably doesn't cover fire like you do. We cover the opposite. We have too much water. It's just funny how the different climates are in different parts of the country. Yeah.
Yeah, since moving out here, it's actually taken me a fair bit of effort to get acclimatized to the desert environment, because I never really lived in the desert before living here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Skywarn is fun. I think it's great. Um, I think it's a great program. It's a great way to help your neighbors. Really, that's really what it's about. You know, um, and you get to learn about the weather. You can't beat that, right? You know, I think it's great. So, all right. Anybody else have any other questions? Well, not anybody else, but any other questions?
Even more generic questions and won't answer them.
If nobody else has a question, I have another one.
Go
It's a
for it.
little bit more off topic. I was just wondering about the scientists that you were talking about who believed that the cosmic microwave background was really redshifted. Do you know more about like why he thinks that? That just, I'm a physics major, so I was interested in that bit.
All right, well, I'll try to summarize this research because I was going over it just the other day, and then I have it at my house at the moment. So the cosmic background radiation, as the CMB itself, is currently redshifted from visible down to microwave light. So it stands to reason that since that is redshifted into the microwave frequencies, then the hydrogen line would also be redshifted down into even lower frequencies, because that starts out at 1.2 gigahertz. And so if you assume a Z shift of around 10, I believe it is, then that works out to somewhere between 74 and 142 megahertz. And so his argument is that you would be able to conduct the microwave. Excuse me, I just lost my train of thought. It happens. You would be able to study hydrogen line emissions from a period before there was even the first galaxies, if you could isolate that and actually begin to do a systematic study.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. Thank you for explaining that.
No problem. I thought it was interesting, but I think that the research has a lot of barriers it has to overcome before you can really start deriving much in the way of conclusive evidence from it.
Hmm.
And to pull a line from back when I was in the Army, there's a lot of unknown knowns and known unknowns, but then there's also unknown unknowns, which sounds like word salad at first. But you know, there's things that you know, there's things that you don't know, and there's things that you know you don't know, and then there's things you know that you do not know, and things that you don't know, whether or not you know or don't know. God, that's a giant freaking mouthful. And he has a lot of those he has to work out with, and we're working with him on every step of the way.
Any others? Any other questions? Those are some cool questions. Yeah. It's interesting that just from what little I understand of what you said, I've been a long way away from, I've been about 50 years away from physics. It's been a while, but it's interesting because the location, the frequencies that you're looking, that you and the scientists are looking at are close to, I think I heard you say 150 megahertz or something like that. They're kind of close to the 2-meter band.
Yeah, that was something I was bringing up with him, and that's a question of like, how are we going about and reducing the foreground noise? And when I started listing off all the different RF sources within just that narrow range, it's like there's a lot that has to be done. A lot of challenges have to be overcome. But if he does it, if he manages it, we'll start to learn something about the early universe, a period of time in which we just don't have a lot of information about.
That is so cool.
So it always takes it takes a little bit of creativity and imagination to come up with these studies.
I have a question if no one else has one. So did you become a ham before you started your career in Double E, or was it after?
I would say 3 years into my time in the Army, so after. And I didn't really even have ham on my radar, if you will, until a friend introduced it to me.
Oh, okay.
And when I started looking into it, I was like, oh, hey, I use this in my everyday work. I use this in my everyday work. Well, I can understand these concepts intuitively. So it just kind of became a offshoot. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame I wasn't able to get my home cameras up and running, all the fun stuff, because I would have shown. Oh.
Oh, you okay?
All right.
Okay, you're good.
Dust.
Oh,
And allergens.
dust. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is that season. Yeah. Yeah, I popped a Zyrtec myself. So, yeah. Okay.
You know, it's all a natural extension of both my job and my hobbies, if you will.
Okay, that's cool. A nice blend. That's
I like to
cool.
say I started out my career busting bits, and now I'm busting receivers.
Okay. Okay, that's great. That's great. Well, okay. I don't have any other questions unless someone else has any, or do you have any closing remarks you'd like to make?
I guess the only thing I could ever really say is stay curious. And don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zones. And try to make the best of any opportunity you get. If it wasn't for the opportunities and steps I took, I wouldn't end up here. That's all I got.
Okay. Well, on that note, we're going to say 7 threes. Thank you so much, Dani, for taking your time and and showing us your cool projects and all that kind of stuff. I found it interesting, and we will definitely be in touch. We are on Discord, and I'm extending an invitation to all the speakers if they'd like to join us on Discord, and feel free to ask questions and answer questions from the students. If you'd like, you're welcome. I'll send you that information after the class if I didn't already. And that's it, 7-3s, folks. Really, thank you again, Dani. Really appreciate your time
Yeah,
and
no
running
problem.
back to the lab.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye.